You know that feeling, right? You're staring at your phone, maybe you've even typed out a whole message, but your thumb is just hovering over the send button. You're waiting for them to text you first. It's this digital standoff that we've all been in, and man, it feels like some high-stakes game. But what if it's not a game at all?
Seriously, have you ever actually stopped to ask yourself, what is really going on in that moment? Why is it so incredibly hard to just hit send? Well, today, we're going to unpack the hidden psychology behind that very hesitation. Okay, so let's break this down. On one side, you have the common assumptions, right? That waiting to text is all about ego, or maybe you just don't care, or you're playing some kind of power game. But the psychology? Well, that tells a completely different story. It's not about power at all. It's about protection. It's all driven by fear and this deep, deep need for emotional safety.
And that's really our starting point here. This whole thing isn't about being cold or trying to act aloof. It's about a fundamental, almost primal protective instinct that gets triggered in our weird digital world.
This line right here, it reframes everything. The threat you can't see. That is the absolute core of it all. We're talking about the fear of rejection, the fear of being ignored, the fear of just being vulnerable. So not texting first becomes this kind of shield. It's a way to stop potential emotional pain before it even gets a chance to happen.
You know, psychologists actually have a term for this pattern. It's called avoidant attachment. Basically, it's a way of relating to other people that's built on a foundation of fearing rejection. So to avoid that possible pain, people subconsciously learn to steer clear of the really deep emotional connections that could lead to it. It's a full-on self-defense mechanism.
And these are some of the key traits that show what it can actually look like in practice. People with these tendencies, they often place a huge value on their independence. They can feel really uncomfortable with too much emotional closeness. They might constantly worry about being too much for someone, and their go-to response to stress, it's often to pull away and withdraw. Does any of that sound familiar?
Okay, now let's get into the really cool part, how this all plays out in our own biology. Because this isn't just some vague feeling. It's a very real neurological thing happening inside your brain when you get left on read.
All right, so meet your amygdala. Think of it as the primal emotional smoke detector in your brain. Its only job is to scream danger whenever it senses a threat. Now, the crazy part is that this is an ancient system. It literally cannot tell the difference between the threat of a tiger lurking in the bushes and the modern social threat of a text being ignored. To your amygdala, potential rejection is a tiger.
So this creates this incredibly powerful subconscious loop. First, you think about sending that text. Then, that uncertainty, will they answer? What will they think? That creates a threat signal. Third, your amygdala just fires up, triggering a flight response, avoid. And just like that, the choice is made for you. You don't text. You have successfully avoided the tiger.
Now, this internal alarm system then leads to certain behaviors. These little strategies our brain develops to try and manage that threat it's sensing.
And one of those is something called strategic scarcity. But listen, the key word here is subconscious. This is not some calculated, manipulative game. It's an instinctual move to feel safer. By limiting your availability, your brain basically reasons that you're reducing the opportunities for rejection, and, hey, maybe as a bonus, you might even increase your perceived value. It's really just a strategy for control.
Okay, let's zoom out for a second. Because this isn't just happening in a vacuum. Our modern world is pretty much designed to amplify these feelings.
Just think about dopamine for a second, that little pleasure chemical our brain releases. That very first notification of the day, man, it feels great, a big hit of dopamine. But by the 10th one, it's a little less exciting. And by the 50th, you're basically becoming desensitized. Our brains are just getting tired of the constant pings.
So what this means is that the potential reward for reaching out just starts to feel smaller and smaller. And when the reward feels small, the perceived risk of getting ignored or rejected feels massive in comparison. The brain's little cost-benefit analysis shifts, and it starts to logically prefer the safety of silence.
So let's pull all these threads together now and try to understand what this whole silent connection is really all about.
So, when we put it all together, what's the big takeaway? The hesitation to text first is almost never about ego. It's a coping mechanism, and it's driven by a deep-seated fear of rejection. That fear can trigger a truly primal threat response in our brain, all because of a little digital uncertainty. And this is all just amplified by our always-on world, which makes the simple act of reaching out feel riskier than ever before.
Which leaves us with one final thought to chew on. If we can reframe this behavior
both in ourselves and in other people, not as a game of ego, but as a search for safety, what changes? How might we all communicate differently if we approached that silence not with suspicion, but maybe with just a little more understanding?